All right, in this explainer, we are digging into a really fascinating study from the Journal of School Leadership. And it tackles a huge question for our schools today. How do we teach character when our world is more diverse than it's ever been? So let's jump right in.
This is really the core challenge, isn't it? When our classrooms are this incredible mix of cultures, backgrounds, and beliefs, what does good character even mean anymore? Is there just one universal answer? Or is there a better way to think about it?
So here's our game plan. First, we're going to look at why the old ways of teaching character often fall short. Then, we'll explore this really powerful alternative called the transcultural approach. We'll actually go inside a classroom to see what it looks like, check out the super important role of school leaders, and then get real about the challenges. And it all leads up to the ultimate goal of all this work.
Okay, so let's start with the problem. Character education has been around in schools for decades, right? But the research we're exploring today says it has a pretty serious blind spot.
So, what's the old playbook look like? Well, the traditional approach, it tends to pick a set of virtues, right? Things like honesty or respect. And it just assumes they mean the exact same thing to everyone. But here's the hidden risk, and this is what the study really hones in on. This can, without anyone meaning to, just reinforce one single dominant cultural view. And what happens? It can make students from different backgrounds feel alienated. Like their own experiences, their own moral traditions, they just don't fit the mold of what it means to have good character.
So, if that old way is kind of broken, what's the fix? This is where the research gets really exciting. It suggests a complete shift in how we think about this. It's called a transcultural approach. And transculturalism, it's not just about, tolerating diversity or having a multicultural food festival once a year. Nope, it's an active, ongoing process. It's about genuinely engaging with our differences to build a shared idea of what it means to be a good person together. It's about recognizing that in our world, we're all constantly moving between different cultural spaces.
So how does this actually work? Well, the study breaks it down into three big ideas. First up is emancipatory learning. That means freeing students to think critically about the world around them and to really see the value in their own unique perspectives. Then there are transcultural frameworks, which is all about actively celebrating different moral traditions as important and valid. And third, communicative rationality. Now that sounds fancy, but it just means creating a space where we can use open, respectful conversation, not just top-down rules, to figure out our shared values as a community.
Okay, theory is awesome, but what does this look like in the real world? Like, what happens when the bell rings? Let's step inside the classroom and see this thing in action.
This quote from a teacher in the study just nails it. Instead of only teaching something like Shakespeare's Hamlet, they paired it with Chinua Achebe's Things Fall Apart. And the result? It was a total game changer. The conversations about morality and choices got so much deeper, and students who had been quiet before were suddenly jumping in because it showed them that their own cultural backgrounds were a source of incredible insight.
And that one classroom, it points to a much bigger picture. Yeah, it starts with the curriculum, the books kids read, but it goes way beyond that. It's about giving students a real say in projects that tackle real-world issues. It happens after school too, in clubs and arts programs that get kids talking. And it's all held together by teaching social skills, but with the understanding that different cultures might handle things like conflict in different ways.
Here is a perfect example of that. There was this middle school with a cultural ambassadors club. At first, it was a little superficial. Students kind of felt like they were museum pieces, just there to represent their culture. But then they made a change. They shifted the whole focus. They stopped just presenting at people and started learning how to facilitate real, honest conversations about what it means to share a community. And the result of that one small but pretty powerful shift? At that school, disciplinary incidents, the ones related to cultural misunderstandings, they dropped by 43%. I mean, think about that. 43%. That is a huge number. And it just goes to show, when students get to truly engage with difference, it can literally change the entire climate of a school.
But of course, changes like these don't just happen on their own. They need to be led. And that brings us to the absolutely crucial role of school principals and other leaders. This principle from the study just says it perfectly. It's what the researchers call principled adaptability. The core principles, justice, inclusion, equity, those are the North Star. They don't change. But how you get there, that's got to be flexible. It has to be tailored to the specific people and the specific community of each and every school.
So what does that leadership actually look like day to day?
Well, this table gives us a great playbook. It means modeling inclusive communication, doing things like making sure all school documents are translated so every family can be involved. It means making decisions together, using methods that bring everyone's voice to the table, not just the loudest ones. It means creating programs that connect what kids are learning to their own cultures and passions. And when conflict happens, because it will, it means using things like restorative circles to actually heal relationships instead of just handing out punishments.
Now, it would be really easy to paint this picture like it's some perfect, simple solution. But the study is very clear. This is hard work, and it comes with some very real challenges.
I mean, let's be real. Schools are already stretched so thin when it comes to time and money. On top of that, teachers need really specific training to do this stuff well. And you've got to get everybody, teachers, parents, the whole community, on board with the idea. And maybe most importantly, when you start having honest conversations about values, you're going to have conflict. That's just part of it. The real trick is learning how to navigate that in a healthy way.
And, talking about those challenges is so important because it reminds us exactly why we're doing this. It brings us to the ultimate goal, the big why behind this whole transcultural approach.
And here it is. The end game here isn't just to manage diversity or to make everyone feel included, as important as that is. It's so much bigger than that. The real goal is to empower our students to become ethical agents, people who can think for themselves, act with integrity, and actually be a force for positive change in this complicated, messy, amazing world that they are all going to inherit.
So we'll leave you with this final thought to chew on. The big idea here, the big shift, is moving away from just celebrating diversity and toward actively building character through diversity. It reframes our differences, not as a problem we have to solve, but as the very stuff we can use to build a stronger, more empathetic, and truly shared character. So the question is, what would our schools look like if we all really truly embraced that challenge?